3.
Okay, so good morning, Prof. Today we'll be talking about Heavenscent, our group's chosen entity. So my group consists of Mervin, Jeremy, Shanice, Alexandria, and myself. So moving on to our table of contents, we'll be going through the introduction, cost behavior, cost volume profit analysis, process costing, and our recommendations. So moving on to more about the company. So it's a self-created entity and an online SME. Its relevant sectors include home manufacturing, retail service, and home decoration. For products, we mainly sell handmade soy wax scented candles, and which comes in 8 different scents. For our target group, we target youths aged between 18 to 35 who have a keen interest in home decor products. And our approximate annual sales is 75k, while our approximate staff number is 8, and we have been in business for approximately 4 years. So moving on to more about the product, for the candle itself, it consists of 100% natural soy wax and a glass jar, wooden lid, essential oil for fragrance, wooden wicks, dried flowers and crystal chips for decoration, crayon for colouring, and a warning label and logo sticker. For packaging, it simply consists of a customized cardboard box, a thank you card, and a Heavenscent sticker. And for sales channel, the company operates on Instagram and our company website, which both are free of charge. They also have paid for advertisements and on Instagram to increase the brand awareness. And an ad typically costs between $100 and $800, which have led to an increase of between 50 and close to 600 followers. Now I'll be passing my time over to Shanice.
Okay, thank you, Christie. So now we'll be moving on to cost behavior. So the first thing that we did was to classify the cost based on variable and fixed costs. You can see this on the table. And then next, we'll move on to classifying the cost based on the cost per unit multiplied by the quantity to get the total fixed cost. And on the right side, you can see that we classify based on the product lines, cotton, vanilla, and cinnamon. So this is the cost per candle at $5.64. And then we also did a contribution margin for 3,260 cinnamon candles. And then we find out that the operating income is actually favorable because the company is generating revenue while maintaining its expenses, production costs, and overhead costs. So next, we would like to check whether we like to analyze the cost behavior through Heavenscent's marketing efforts. So these are the data that we gathered. So we have the month from January to December and the advertising cost and the amount of followers that they get through the advertising cost. So from this data, we would like to find out how much Heavenscent need to pay for one follower, and also to create an equation for Heavenscent to estimate its marketing budget based on the number of followers they want to gain on Instagram. So after the calculations, we did a high-low method, and we found out that for one follower, they need $1.33, and we also have the equation below over here. So from the equation, we can find out that if Heavenscent wants to obtain 1,000 followers in the following month, they actually have to pay $1,363.90 to obtain this amount. So one recommendation for this is for Heavenscent to track the number of customers they get from each of the follower. So to check how many customers buy their products. So this will calculate the marketing cost, how much of their marketing cost is translated to sales. Okay, so one recommendation for Heavenscent is also as they work towards the expansion of their business, they should also work towards having greater fixed costs. And they can do this by investing in candle assembling machine to take over a mundane task. This will also improve operational efficiency as they are allowed to hire more knowledge workers such as marketing, new product development, and research. As we understand that assembling machines might be costly and a huge investment, another alternative that Heavenscent can adopt is to use differential analysis. Now I'll pass my time to Alex.
Okay, so saying that Mother's Day is coming and due to limited resources, Heavenscent would like to maximize operational efficiency by choosing one candle to produce out of 3 different scents, the cotton, vanilla, and cinnamon. So, Heavenscent recognizes its limited resources to be its employees and the amount of time that they can spend on each candle. Since processing time of vanilla takes the shortest out of the 3, employees are able to produce the most number of vanilla candles compared to the other two, and hence they would choose to produce vanilla candles. However, a drawback of this method is that it does not take into account contribution margin per candle. Therefore, we suggest using differential analysis for more accurate finding of which candle has the highest CM. So, when we use differential analysis, we determine that in actuality, cinnamon candles have the most valuable use of employee time because it yields a contribution margin of approximately 54 cents per minute, which is higher than the other two, of 49 and 45. Therefore, we recommend Heavenscent using differential analysis to make decisions on which candle scents to launch for their Mother's Day product line. So in addition, the company can choose to improve the contribution margin per minute of the two different scents, firstly by increasing the price of cotton scent to $28 and the vanilla scent to $22 as seen in the chart. Decrease the variable cost for each candle is another possibility by sourcing for cheaper but quality essential oil suppliers. So I'll be moving on to CVP analysis of Heavenscent. So firstly, for break-even point, we use fixed expense and the contribution margin calculated previously to determine that Heavenscent has to sell 1,456 units and get a sales of $33,488. So the break-even ratio would be 0.4465, which means that Heavenscent needs to do 44% of their business to break even. So the margin of safety ratio we calculated would be 0.55. And then finally, degree of operating leverage, we use contribution margin and net operating income to calculate DOL of 1.8. So the low DOL lets us infer that Heavenscent uses lower fixed costs, which is actually beneficial for them in the adverse market conditions, such as during COVID. So furthermore, a low DOL ratio can also indicate a higher MOS, which is also beneficial. So, also giving you a situation. Suppose that during the epidemic, Heavenscent observed a decline in sales of 15% and wants to find out their new net operating profits. So, using the 1.8, we can times it by 15%, which will equal to 27%, to find the new operating profits of the original profits, 75,000, times 100% minus 27%. So this gives us 54,750. Now I'll pass my time on to Mervin.
Alright, so now we'll actually move on to analyzing price changes. So as COVID-19 is ending, we all know that there's the inflation. So everything is on the rise. So likewise, Heavenscent has also felt the impact of this, and their variable and fixed costs have been rising. So as you can see on the screen, the variable cost has actually rose by 8%, while for the fixed cost, it has estimated to rise by 4% based on the research that was done, and the workers' salary are to be risen by 4% in 2023. So now the question here is whether Heavenscent should actually increase their selling price by 5% to actually combat inflation, assuming that price stays the same. So on the left, we can actually see the part highlighted would remind us of the increase in percentage of the cost. So that would be 8% for variable, 4% for fixed, and the question is whether to increase the selling price by 5%. So below it, we can actually see the original contribution income statement, whereby the break-even unit was 1,456. So on the right, we've actually retabulated all the sales, variable costs, as well as fixed expense, and we came up with the new break-even units of 1,465. So this is actually roughly similar to the previous break-even units. So Heavenscent should actually increase their price by 5% to combat inflation. However, if Heavenscent wants to reduce break-even units by increasing their selling price, they should be aware and be careful, because they should take note of the price elasticity of customers, whereby if the price increase too much, they will not be willing to actually purchase these candles. So now we move on to whether Heavenscent should actually advertise. being in its 4th years of operation, Heavenscent would definitely want to expand into other areas of social media besides Instagram. So what better way to do it is through Amazon, which is the largest e-commerce platform which everyone should know. So through research, we have actually found that the cost per click is 0.89 cents and is estimated to have an average click of around 75,000. So out of this 75,000, 8% will actually be the conversion rate, where there will be 6,000 sales of candles if they were to actually click onto this advertisement. So this actually leads to an increased sales of 9,260 compared to the previous 3,260. So the question now here is whether Heavenscent should actually advertise on Amazon. So if we actually move on, we can see that the advertising cost is simply taken by the cost per click multiplied by the 75,000 clicks, which will give us a total cost of 66,750. However, if we actually look at the contribution margin, which is $14.83 multiplied by the additional sales, which is 6,000, that will give us $88,890. So on the bottom left, we can see an Excel tabulated revenue gain or loss, which will give us an increased net income of 22,230. So Heavenscent should actually advertise on Amazon to improve their business, as it brings about more benefits rather than its cost. So now I'll pass on to Jeremy.
Alright, so now we'll talk about process costing, and we'll analyze the cost of each department involved in the production process, and also recommend on improving the costing and efficiency. So before that, we like to understand why we use process costing and not job costing. That's because for Heavenscent, you can see that costs are accumulated by departments versus by jobs. Heavenscent themselves has Department 1, which is in charge of preparation, Department 2, in charge of melting and decoration, and Department 3, in charge of cooling and packaging. Secondly, for Heavenscent, the work in process has a production report for each batch of products versus job costing where it's recorded for each job. Thirdly, for Heavenscent, as they mainly focus on producing candle, it has a few identical low-cost products versus job costing where they have many unique high-cost products. And lastly, for Heavenscent, the units are continuously produced for inventory in an automated process versus building to custom built to order for job costing. So then, for the process costing analysis, we choose to do the month of February where Heavenscent had their highest units sold. They sold 430 candles in that month. In the 3 departments, you have Department 1, preparation, where 118 grams of unmelted soy wax is measured and portioned into a glass jar. For Department 2, for melting and decoration, portioned soy wax is then melted and essential oil and crayon colouring will be added at the start. As the melted wax cool, various decoration will be added at different stages we will cover later on the timeline, such as wooden wick, rose quartz, and dried flowers. And lastly, for Department 3, cooling and decorations, candles are decorated with a sticker on the lid, packed into a wooden box and a crepe paper and a thank you card. So for our process cost analysis, we'll be focusing more on Department 2 and how we can improve as it's a bulk majority of their costs. So the timeline for Department goes as such. At 0% completion, the unmelted soy wax are melted and are poured into the glass jar, and then essential oil and crayon colouring are added at 0%. At 30% completion, while it's semi-cooled, a wooden wick is added into the center of the candle jar. At 80% completion, rose quartz are added and 50% of the dried flowers are added. The process ends at 90%, but at 95% completion, the remaining 50% of dried flowers will be added to decorate the top. So with that, we did a process costing analysis, and the beginning work in progress is 30 from the last month, and for the transfer in from Department 1 for Department 2, we are looking at 430 for a total of 460 units accountable. The ending work in progress for the following month, the month of February is also 30. It's because Heavenscent practice standard of at least having some stocks for the next month. So with that, considering our transfer in cost and our conversion cost, we come to find that the total unit cost for per candle is $11.44. So with that, there are 3 areas then we want to highlight on recommendations then. Firstly will be transfer in costing, secondly will be essential oils, and thirdly will be conversion costs. So for our recommendation 1, we recommend Heavenscent to streamline the departments and merge Department 1 and 2. So why so is to aim to reduce the redundancy of Department 1, as Department 1 just mainly measures 118 grams of unmelted soil wax into the glass. So what the new merged department will do instead then is that now soil wax is melted in a larger quantity and portioned directly into the glass jars. The process of decoration then will follow as per normal. So there's no need to measure individually now, and they can straight away measure and decorate. So with that, if we streamline the departments and reduce the redundancy, it removes the transfer in cost from Department 1 to Department 2, bringing our total unit cost to $7.31. Second recommendation for 2 and 3, for 2 we're considering to improve the costing for the essential oil, because the current costing of essential oil is 0.996 cents per candle. That is about 1/7 of our unit per cost or new unit per cost. We suggest an alternative, which is fragrance oil, which costs roughly about 40 to 60 cents. Why is this so? Because fragrance oil is significantly cheaper as it's a synthetic product, but it's still able to mimic and produce the same quality of scent. For our third recommendation, we are suggesting to integrate automation and technology. So you can see here there's an electric wax melter and there's a precision wax pourer. With these two technology, Heavenscent staff are better able to work faster and more efficient, and also reduce the manpower needed, overall reducing the conversion cost. And then with that, we come to our end of our presentation. Thank you. Bye, bro.
I don't think everybody is inside. Okay.